Well, it's safe to say this bill's language, some of it wide open to interpretation, has touched off a lot of concern from Democrats and Republicans, libertarians and old-line conservatives. It's also safe to say that there are smart and serious people out there who worry that these concerns are being steamrollered and that as a country we're not having the serious and plain-spoken debate that the issue deserves. Andrew Sullivan takes it one step further. He calls it legalizing tyranny and accuses the administration of debasing the language of freedom. I spoke to him earlier. Andrew, what is it about this bill that concerns you so much? I mean, your writing on this has been incredibly impassioned.
Well, first of all, we don't really know what's in the bill. It's very confusing. It seems as if it's deliberately confusing, and yet they're rushing it into law in the space of a few days. And when you think of what issues are at stake in this law, namely that the President of the United States can simply name anybody on the battlefield, off the battlefield, anywhere in the United States.
U.S. citizen, non-U.S. citizen.
That's not clear either. Name them an illegal enemy combatant, detain them indefinitely without charges, and torture them by any usual sense of the word torture, at will. I mean, the last person to be able to do this in America was King George III, and I can't believe that we are now returning to that with congressional backing.
You say whatever else this is, it is not a constitutional democracy. It is a thinly veiled military dictatorship subject to only one control, the will of the great decider. And the war that justifies this astonishing attack on American liberty is permanent, without end.
Yes. The amazing thing about the provision as we now see it is that only one person, not the law, not the Congress, and no courts, only one person, the President, has the right to decide who is going to be detained. Not only that, but he can detain that person indefinitely. At best, they may get a military court at some point. They certainly have no habeas corpus rights, which goes right way back to Magna Carta, and they can be subject to being tortured.
It is amazing that the U.S., you know, the President Bush still says America doesn't torture.
Well, the meaning of the word torture in the English language and under law is severe mental or physical pain or suffering. Now, if you strap somebody to a board upside down and pour water over their face or dunk their head in water till they're about to drown, then bring them out, and you do that repeatedly and repeatedly, it's torture. It was done by the KGB. It's documented by Alexander Solzhenitsyn in the Gulag Archipelago. It's now being practiced, and has been practiced, we know, by the President of the United States. And in the negotiations with Senator McCain, they left this up to the discretion of the President.
You know, your critics will say you sound like a liberal on this. You say this is actually an issue that conservatives should get behind.
Look, conservatives have always believed that the most important thing in politics is protecting the individual from excessive government power. And whenever conservatives say to me, I'm a liberal, I say to them two words: President Hillary. What if this law will allow presidents from now forever in this indefinite war to detain anybody at will for any reason? The potential for abuse of this power is enormous. And civil liberty conservatives and people like Bill Buckley or Bruce Fine, Jeffrey Hart or George Will, these people are concerned about the constitutional due process that this is violating.
Why do you think, though, this story, what is happening, really hasn't gotten much traction? I mean, people don't want to hear about it. I mean, I know the ratings for this segment are going to go down because people turn this stuff off.
That's how it always happens. People always, when these things occur, look the other way. People think it's always going to happen to someone else, or they think that these people are somehow all terrorists. They're terror suspects. 90% of the people we detained in Abu Ghraib were innocent, it turned out, as the U.S. admitted. Dozens of people in Guantanamo were completely innocent, as the army and military subsequently admitted. So there is no process to determine who is innocent or guilty in these matters. They're being detained without charges.
You're writing a lot about it on the blog, AndrewSullivan.com. Andrew, appreciate you being on. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Anderson, for raising this issue.
Well, an innocent man. Imagine you arrive in America, and at the airport, they say you're a terrorist. Within days, you're secretly sent to a foreign country and tortured. It happened to this man.
I don't think this was a simple mistake. This was a deliberate attempt to send me to Syria to extract information under torture.
U.S. officials believed Mr. Arar, a 36-year-old Canadian software engineer, was a member of al-Qaeda, and they deported him to Syria, where he was allegedly tortured for months. Now, a 2-year investigation by Canadian officials has cleared him of any ties to terrorism. It's also uncovered the mistakes that put an innocent man through 10 months of hell. Earlier today, I talked to him about his ordeal. In a moment, my interview. First, some background.
There is no evidence to indicate that Mr. Arar has committed any offense or that his activities constitute a threat to the security of Canada.
Those are the words that Maher Arar waited nearly 4 years to hear.
Today, Justice O'Connor has cleared my name and restored my reputation.
The report that's given him his good name back fills 1,200 pages and 3 volumes. It describes a nightmare that began in late September 2002 when U.S. officials detained Arar at New York's Kennedy International Airport. He was sent to Syria, where he was born, a country notorious for torturing prisoners.
The beating I went through is just beyond human imagination. The cell they put me in, which was the size of a grave, 3 feet wide, 6 feet long and 7 feet high. It was dark, it was filthy.
A special commission in Canada spent 2 years investigating the incident. The report it released last week urges the Canadian government to formally protest American treatment of Arar. And as for the man at the center of it all, he's suing U.S. officials and agencies responsible for sending him to Syria. He's also demanding an explanation from the Bush administration. Well, the Bush administration doesn't call what happened to him rendition, the practice of sending terror suspects to other countries for interrogation. It says it simply deported a man believed to be a terror suspect. Earlier today, I asked Mr. Arar exactly what happened to him when he got to Syria. How long was it before the torture began?
The message was clear from the first day that if they do not like my answers, they will be using torture. At the end of each day, they would tell me tomorrow will be worse. So next day, they actually started the beating with a cable. Out of nowhere, the interrogator came into the interrogation room and he started beating me.
What cable? What do you mean?
Well, it's a black cable, and he asked me to open my right palm. I opened it, and he hit me with it. And you know, it was extremely humiliating because I was never beaten in my life, not even a slap on the face, you know. So the pain, that, just to give you an idea about the pain, it's so painful and intense to the point where you really forget every enjoyable moment in your life.
And you're willing to say just about anything.
Well, yes. You know, when the beating becomes intense to the point where you can't take it, you just tell them what they would like to hear.
How long was it before you gave a false confession?
Well, it's the third day. The most intensive day was the third day. I can tell you that the interrogation lasted anywhere between 16, I would say, to 20 hours. And
16 to 20 hours you were interrogated for at a time?
16 to 20 hours approximately. The beatings, of course, on and off. Sometimes they would put me in a room alone where I could hear other prisoners being tortured. And that was psychological torture on its own. It's just beyond human imagination, frankly.
Did you think you would ever get out alive?
You know, I had weak moments where I really wanted to commit suicide because I couldn't take it anymore. But I think what kept me going through all of this is my faith and the hope that one day I will be released.
I want to read you something that the U.S. Justice Department has said. They said you're a Syrian national who was deported. They don't say you weren't a subject of rendition. They say you were deported, and that, quote, that the U.S. government received what they believed to be reliable assurances that you would be treated humanely, consistent with international treaties and conventions. You think that's a lie?
Well, the deportation process they use is a disguise. You know, if you compare what happened to me to the other stories that we've heard over the past 3 years, it's clearly, it follows the pattern of rendition.
You're suing, I know. What is it you want? I mean, obviously monetary compensation for what you've been through, but you want someone to apologize.
Through the lawsuit that I've launched, you know, just to remind everyone, the lawsuit was dismissed last year by a federal judge, but we are appealing. And most importantly, what I want is, I want to hold those people accountable. I want to hold those American officials who sent me to Syria accountable so that this doesn't happen to any other person. That's the most important objective I have.